Hi, I'm Fiona Frank from Lancaster and Lakes Jewish Community, Chair of the Board of Deputies Climate Action Group. Thank you all for coming. I'm here with Andrew Pass, Operations Director of Eco-Judaism, and Rabbi Jeff Berger, Trustee and member of Eco-Judaism's leadership team representing the Spanish and Portuguese Sephardi community. So I have to start by saying that we did carefully consider whether we needed to cancel tonight in view of the situation. But after consultation with Eco-Judaism's rabbinical team and with the Board of Deputies, we decided to go ahead to remind ourselves that the climate emergency won't go away, that it's even more essential to think about the long-term effect of all our actions in these dark days. And it might seem futile to separate our recycling when our people are at war, but we have to also keep our mind on the long-range survival of the planet. Rabbi Berger is going to say a few words and a prayer at the end to hold us together in these difficult times and remind us of the importance of continuing to do this work as Jews, whatever's going on in the world. But now I'm going to hand over to Andrew Pass to say a little about the work of Eco-Judaism.
Good evening, everyone. Once again, it's amazing to see you all here. And if I don't get an opportunity towards the end, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Fiona for all the work she's done in pulling this project together. And of course, our own Donna, who has been in contact with all of the shuls that are represented here tonight. So to Fiona, predominantly for pulling all the tech and everything together, and to Donna, thank you very much. So the Eco-Judaism project became a charity at the end of December, at which point we parted ways as a partnership project with the board's deputies. But as this event shows, we've retained very close connections with the boards, and we're very grateful for their support. Eco-Judaism has 7 streams of activities, of which some of them are more developed than others. The best known one at the moment is the EcoSynagogue project, of which all of you, or most of you here, have engaged. That project provides resources, predominantly the environmental audit. And the audit is holistic, so it looks at environmental issues, sustainability, and moving towards net zero in a holistic manner, as a framework for each community to look at what's going on within their worship space and with their volunteers and their congregations to find the best way that they can move forward. So for some people, this is going to be educating children. For some people, this is going to be creating outdoor spaces and growing food. For some people, it's going to be solar panels. For others, it's going to be lighting. For others still, it's going to be learning about the Jewish reasons why we do this work. It doesn't matter where we start, as long as we start. And as you'll hear from all the fabulous communities that are here today, everybody starts in a place that suits them, and it gathers momentum. And the achievement and the excitement and the sense of accomplishment that all our award winners feel when they've got to a point where Donna has said, yes, you've got an award, is amazing. And so I thank you all for doing the work. And the best thing about this project is the amount of collaboration that goes on. So if we hear about a community that is struggling or wants some ideas in one area, and we know, because we talk, or Donna talks mostly to all of you all the time, that there's another community, geographically it might not be in the same place, demographically it might be different, but we connect you because there's a willingness that we're all doing this work together. So on that note, I am going to pass back to Fiona with another huge thank you, and I look forward to this evening.
Thank you to Andrea. It's been great to work with you. Okay, in 2021, the Board of Deputies pledged to take action to cut carbon emissions and to play its part in achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. So the Board of Deputies has partnered with Eco-Judaism tonight, and I'm the chair of the Board of Deputies Climate Action Group. So as that, we have partnered with Eco-Judaism tonight to share some inspiring stories from communities around the UK who have been working with Eco-Judaism in the way that Andrew has been talking about, in ways to cut their carbon footprints, in the hope that as many people as possible will join us and will watch these recordings afterwards, and to start to think about what we can all do in our communities and at home and at work towards achieving net zero. We're recording the session so that the recordings will be included on the Eco-Judaism website forever to share with as many people as we can. So tonight we're going to hear from 5 communities who are doing some very interesting things. They're going to share their triumphs and their problems, and hopefully it'll get you all thinking. So I'm going to introduce the first speaker now. I've asked everybody to keep their presentations short. So our first presenter is Martin Brownstone at Cole High Hatch End Reform Community. Martin has some really interesting things to say to us about how it's managing people as well as managing energy. Over to you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. I think given the limitation on time, actually, it might be more to do with less of people and more to do with buildings. My background is actually a chartered surveyor, so I'm going to focus my comments truly on what we've done within the building, largely on the back of a sizable refurbishment, which we undertook over COVID, in fact. Lots of pre-planning up to that point, but we actually did the work to do with the aesthetics of the building, but took the opportunity with the budget that we had of upgrading our environmental credentials. So the building, originally constructed in about 1990s with some more small extensions thereafter, comprises a multifunctional room which delivers services but hosts activities. A few other rooms as well, including a kitchen and toilets, if you can picture that. So we took the opportunity of addressing, I suppose, the infrastructure, the fabric. So I'm going to briefly talk about lights, heating, and we also did the big step of doing a solar installation. Lighting, we had various different light fittings. Some were really energy consuming, and with the input of an electrician who was a member of our synagogue, we were able to produce a specification flipping everything over to LEDs, which up to that point we'd only done in part. We were also able to upgrade some lighting controls. So we have, which is probably quite typical in this day and age, some motion sensors. We did actually install one quite amusingly in the rabbi's office. It wasn't intending to be a joke. But when we eventually went back in after COVID, the rabbi recognized or flagged up that she had to wave her hands every 5 minutes to turn the lights back on. But that was just a small adjustment. So we feel quite proud of what we've done on the lighting front. On the heating front, please bear in mind, actually, our building is totally serviced by electricity. We don't have any gas. Our major consumption of energy is solely electricity. We were very keen to address some controls. So I'm sure a lot of communities have experienced situations where people have left the building and turned off the heating, didn't turn off the heating, and someone would come in the following morning and find that the heating had been delivering far more than it should have been in an occupied environment. This happened too many occasions, so we're particularly keen to address that. So we were really able to beef up our controls. Now, we as a little planning committee spent a lot of time looking at this and thought, well, the main thing that we can do is just have a simple switch, idiot-proof, hit the switch, heating would come on for 2 hours in our main room, and after 2 hours it would flip off, which would be enough time for most things to be accommodated. And if you needed a bit more heat, you could just flip the switch again. We thought it was a great idea. There were some people quite vociferous in the community that said they didn't like that because they wanted to come into a lovely warm building and not wait 15 minutes for it to be heated up. So we've actually had to tinker around with the controls after the installation, which from a planning perspective was somewhat annoying, but nevertheless, we're here to service the clients. And then we did some solar. Now, our original refurbishment budget, in truth, didn't really extend to that degree. Typical installation with batteries these days is £12,000 or so, £13,000. But we did have a very green-minded member of the community that specifically said, I'm going to denote a sizable sum to you, but this is only going to be applied to some form of environmental issue, and I'd like it to be solar. So that was really quite forceful, was a really big, strong message, which the management committee could not help to pick up on and equally think about the commercial benefits. So armed with a sizable donation for something specific, add the gift aid, what we had to make up as a community was relatively small in the scheme of things. So yeah, we have a lovely app. It delivers lots of information. Most of it, in truth, I don't actually understand. I truly, in 2 years, I can't kind of visualize how much 13.672 megawatts is, but that's what we've done so far, and saved 13.63 tons of CO2 emissions. It all sounds very impressive. But the solar has actually been an inspiration to other people in the community. And I do know one household that has gone out of their way on the back of this installation to do their own installation at home. So that's like a feather in the cap. Looking around the building, we did have very few green areas to work with. And so we effectively got a car park, a small grass verge with a service road, and some overhanging trees. We had to rattle our brain doing the EcoSynagogue audit to think, how can we kind of make life a bit more friendly for fauna and fauna? And on the back of that, one member of our green group followed an RSBP instruction plan on how to make bird boxes. One got installed on the overhanging tree. Delighted that I actually caught a photograph of a bird going in and out at one particular spring. 3 others were also issued to other members of the community, some with some success. I know some have not seen a bird at all. The grass verge that we also have, we played around with trying to meadow that, but in truth, that never really kicked off, and it takes far more work than we actually had the resources to apply. And now we're working on a new project, which will hopefully deliver a living wall to our building. We're very early stages, but it would be lovely if we can make that happen. Now, it's fair to say, though, that all these are capital expenditure type projects. You need to usually throw a bit of money to make things happen. What I would say in my own learnings of this would be that people are usually happy to people are more happy to throw money into a kitty rather than a slush fund where who knows where the money is going, if it is something project specific. So that was really highlighted to us when we did the solar panel installation. So if you are considering any, so say, CapEx projects, to cultivate interest, sending out the word that your monies would actually go to something which hopefully you might feel quite passionate about, might actually reap bigger dividends than, say, chuck some money into a pot. I don't know how much time I've got left, Fiona. Can you give me a little guide here? You
can have another minute.
Another minute. So there's obviously so many things that we've done, like any other community. I thought the final thought was that to, again, raise the profile of green issues within our community. One of our members, pleased to say he's on here tonight, lobbied really hard with our management committee to include a green charity within our High Holy Day appeals. So on the back of that, the Woodland Trust are recipient of some monies following our collection. And then that was really a very simple way of kind of highlighting the opportunities of getting involved in green communities, green projects. I'd also like to say thank you, Fiona, for allowing me to speak. As a green group within Colne High, your enthusiasm does ebb and flow, but I think this type of forum, these type of webinars has now given us a little bit more impetus to get a bit more excited, to take a few more takeaways to apply to our own community. So thank you so much. I think that's probably about it.
Thank you very much, Martin. Beautifully timed and beautifully presented. Thank you. So the second presenter is Louise Froggatt from New North London Synagogue. She's been doing fantastic things. She seems to have boundless energy and unlimited time from the conversations that I've had with her. So I'm really looking forward to this talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Thank you, everyone. What I wanted to talk about today was how we ended up getting our Gold Award at New North London Synagogue. And I'm a professional at the synagogue. I know a lot of you are volunteers, and so you're balancing this with your day job, and this is actually part of my job, and we're very fortunate that we invest money, you know, in the staff in order to make these sorts of things happen. What I wanted to talk to you about was one of the big point scoring things that managed to get us to gold, and that was completing the 360-degree carbon audit. It gives you 20 points, and I know that this is about much more than that, and there are loads of other things that we have been doing in the synagogue to get us to gold. But I wanted to talk to you about the carbon audit, because I think I was quite I don't know if intimidated. Let's say I was quite intimidated, because there's a lot of information that you have to put in there, and I'm not going to go into detail, but I just want to talk in top lines about how I tackled it, so that you feel more confident in maybe trying out yourself. And then the second thing I'm just going to talk very briefly about is one other project that we've done at New North London. So for those of you that haven't seen the 360-degree carbon audit, it tackles a number of different areas. So this is the dashboard, if you like, of what we look like at New North London. It looks at energy, travel, flying, food, expenditure, waste and water. And we now have a benchmark. This was done, we started it actually in a year ago. So it's measuring the last year, but we now have a benchmark. And this is how we tackled. I'm not expecting you to read what's on the screen, but I just want to tell you, if you look along the top, you can see the area that's greened tells you which section we're on. So this one is about your synagogue, and it's basically asking you how many people, how you use your building and how many people you have in there. So it's kind of a straightforward maths, you know, if you like. The next one is looking at energy, and this one we took from our energy bills. That's how I got the information for that, electricity, gas, etc. Now the travel one was one of the areas that took me a lot of time. So we did two things here. First of all, we did a survey with the members, and we got quite a good response rate. We've got 2,500 adults in the, you know, we've got over 3,500 members, say 2,500 adults in the community, or just over 2,000, and we got about 100 or so responses back, and people told us, we were asking them how they were traveling to and from shul, and then we used you know, an equation to multiply it out so that we could work out what the total was. And again, this is something that we have as one of our aims, that, you know, next year we hope that we can reduce that. In all of our emails to our members, we always encourage them to share, you know, to do a lift share, or to take a bike, or to walk to shul. Of course, we're careful. We're a Masorti shul, and we're not encouraging people to do that on Shabbat and Yom Tov, but people come to shul. We have lots of, our shul building is used throughout the week with events, with Cheder on a Sunday morning, with B'nai Mitzvah program on Tuesday and Wednesday evening. So there's lots of other times that people are coming to shul. And then you'll see just next to congregation where it says staff, for staff, we've got 30 plus staff, including teachers that teach at our nursery. And so I emailed them all and asked them how they travel to and from work. So there is one information that you fill in for congregation, information you fill in for staff. The next one is flying, and I'm pleased to say that there was very little on the flying front. I think you'll see on my dashboard that was one of the lowest things. I think there's just been a couple of flights that the rabbi has taken to Germany to teach, and to the Ukraine during the beginning of the war, to go for solidarity reasons. Food was a little bit, again, it was a bit like the numbers. You've got to kind of work out, we have Kiddush every week, we have Kiddush on the Chagim, we have community meals. And so it was just a matter of kind of, adding that up as part of my job. So that's how I did the calculations there. And then expenditure, I had to go to the finance team to find out, what we're spending on. You'll see there's a range of things that you would imagine that you spend within a synagogue: web hosting, stationery, cleaning products, printing, furniture, etc. And then again, waste and water. This was taken from our bill, and so this piece of work in pulling together the audit was it takes time and it takes effort, but as you see, there's a mix of running surveys and of looking at your bills and just doing the calculations yourself. I'm happy to talk more about it to anyone that wants to know in detail. And finally, this is just, I said I'd just talk about one thing that we do. We have a recycling station, and these are the items that you can recycle at our recycling station. It's open to anyone in the area. It's not just for members. And if you're not familiar with TerraCycle, we send the collections off to them, and then they take the material and they repurpose it, or they make garden furniture like benches and picnic tables out of the recycled material that can then be bought. I think that's me done.
That is fabulous. And thank you so much, and especially TerraCycle. We use TerraCycle where I live in Lancaster co-housing, which is terribly eco, but we didn't do tights, and I didn't know about contact lenses. So I'm going to look into that. That's really fascinating. Thank you so much, Louise.
Pleasure.
So the third presenter is Susan Siegel from Garnet Hill Synagogue, Glasgow. I used to be a member there, and I was very happy to be there a few weeks ago visiting the Scottish Jewish Archives Centre, and I saw some of the things that Susan's going to be talking about. So it's great to have you here. Thank you very much.
Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me and joining us and talking about the kinds of things that we've been doing. Those of you may remember that we were very fortunate because COP26 was in Glasgow a few years ago. And it's actually how it all started. We started out being a small but perfectly formed group at Garnet Hill. And obviously having all of the environmentalists in one place was very exciting for us, because we had a chance to hear what everyone all over the world was doing in terms of the environment. So it was a great opportunity for us to see how we could become more environmentally aware. We developed a committee at Garnet Hill, and we took the Board of Deputies survey. Now, this is a few years ago. We also worked together to develop some multi-faith relationships within the community, which was very helpful because our friends at the Church of Scotland, as well as our friends at St. Aloysius Church just down the street, were already doing some environmental things, and we could learn some things about in terms of what they were doing. So it was really great. So we explored what we could do differently. The benefit we had was that we had partnered with some of our local suppliers, and those of you who have ever been to Glasgow know that Mark's Deli is the kosher deli in the environment. Mark had already, he was a few steps ahead of us, and he was very good about recommending what we could do differently in terms of our food and in terms of our suppliers, and also in terms of recycling things. So that was a good opportunity for us to partner with him. And also you'll see, we also coordinated with local faith groups. The person on the left, unfortunately, is passed away, but he was Monsignor of Glasgow, and the lady next to me is Sister Isabel, who we are still quite friendly with. Some of you may recognize the person on the right. He happens to be my partner. He was also a vice president of the Board of Deputies. It's Paul Edlin. And at the time, he was the president of the Glasgow Jewish Rep Council. So we spent quite a bit of time with local people in the community talking about what we could do differently. And I will say that our Catholic and Church of Scotland and Muslim and Hindu and Buddhist friends were very good about sharing some of their ideas. So it was very good. The congregation became more involved. Many of them came to hear the chief rabbi. He addressed us. People were very enlightened and were very excited about doing something that was being sponsored by the Board of Deputies. As it happened, and I think you can see a few people there that you know, as it happened, we were awarded the Bronze Award during that event. And certainly, you know, the people that we were with that day. That was on one of the mornings of COP26. So it was a really very good opportunity for the community to get excited about being recognized for what we were doing by some UK groups. So we did some activities and learned about the environment. Now, the lady standing up and waving her hand is actually on this. She's in the audience today. Her name is Shana Khan, and she is the person that coordinates all of the youth activities. So she's actually on the call, and I'm sure if you have questions for her later about the things that she did with the children, she'd be delighted to share them. She put together a number of activities to help the children learn about the environment, and she was able to connect them to all the major Jewish festivals. This is actually the courtyard in Garnet Hill, which is now, as you can see, blossoming. And this was all part of the project that we were working on. So we did some things in the garden. You will notice that the tiny little pots were all planted by the children. And this is a really fun event because we talked to the children about the environment and what they could do to save the environment. And again, there's Paul watering the plants. We now have a sustainable herb garden in Garnet Hill, and we use the plants for our meals. And if there's anything left over, we're planning on sharing them with the multicultural center, which is just down the street. So I urge you to ask questions to Shana later, because she's much better at developing all these environmental things with the children than I am. So this is our courtyard. You will notice that the gentleman to the left, who happens to be from across the street, volunteered to help us. The two gentlemen there are of the minority community that's located within Garnet Hill. So not only did we have an opportunity to do some environmental things, but what also gave us an opportunity to work with the community and get some benefits from them. Turns out some of them are quite expert at helping us keep our plants alive. So we've been able to really have a good time with this. If you come to visit us, you will see, unfortunately, our climbers are not climbing, but the rest of the plants are quite healthy. And we're quite excited about what we've been able to do. But it wasn't just about the plants. So what else did we do? We did kind of an environmental audit within the building. By the way, Garnet Hill is 144 years old. It's twice as old as I am, but it's in much better shape because we have a lot of help from the government to help us keep the building in shape and make sure that it's a grade A listed building. So we've been able to, there was a lot of room to find out how we could be more environmentally efficient. So you will notice on the left that we try very hard. Whatever we purchase is recyclable. We're no longer using plastics. We changed the light bulbs. We've made the toilets much more energy efficient. Our serving platters and plates are all recyclable. We have regular reviews with our members, and we met with a number of community leaders. So we've done all the little things that you could do. And I would urge anyone who's just beginning this, it's the little things that make a difference. And it's the little things that get people involved, because they begin to realize it's not that hard. You can become more environmentally aware, and you can do a lot of things that are small but make a big difference. So what happened? Well, Andrea called me one day, I think it was Andrea, and said, you know, you're probably doing a lot of stuff. So why don't we go through and see whether you're able to get to the next rung? And we were. So we're very, very excited, and it was a big celebration with Garnet Hill, the Garnet Hill members. We were awarded silver this year. So this was just kind of a story about how we went from bronze to silver. I don't know whether they're going to get to gold, but we're certainly making an effort to keep track of what we're working on. So where are we going and what are we doing next? We're continuing to review our recycling, and we're identifying whatever we can buy and reuse. We're also undergoing an assessment of our heating system, and you can well imagine with a very old building, there's a lot of energy that's escaping. So we're working with some environmental people who are giving us advice on what we can do differently. Unfortunately, some of the solutions are quite expensive, so we need to figure out what the payback is going to be. We're focusing on continuing educational programs to ensure that people understand what they can do differently. And we're also encouraging people to use public transportation when they're coming to our events and our activities. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of Glasgow. You're welcome to visit. We'd love to have you, and we'd love to have you visit the Heritage Center in Garnet Hill.
That was great, and the timing was fantastic. Thank you so much, Susan. The fourth presenter is Deb Altman from Newcastle Reformed Synagogue. She and I have had a lovely time this week discussing our connections, both being from outside London and both being folk musicians. So welcome, Deb. Looking forward to hearing your talk. Thank you.
Oh, hello, everyone. It's lovely to be here, and thank you so much for asking me to present. I'm representing Newcastle Reformed Synagogue in Newcastle, and I'm going to talk about a few of the things we've done, and I'm going to illustrate this with photos of our projects because I think that makes it far more interesting. We don't have a lot of outdoor space, but we've been quite creative about using it. You can see on the left, behind the woman in the check shirt, that's our car park. So this whole area, as Susan was saying, this whole area that we've created is kind of the margins of the car park. And this was probably a couple of years ago when some active members decided to dig it up and make a vegetable patch which flowered beautifully. There are squashes and beetroots and all sorts of things that were then used in our kiddushim. And we created an outdoor seating area. This is a tiny little courtyard out where we put our sukkah, just outside the back door of the synagogue. All the equipment here was upcycled from members who, you know, had it lying around and wanted to brighten up the synagogue, and members spent time painting things, and it became a seating area in the summer. And someone donated a water butt. So we've saved a fantastic amount of water by making use by watering all the plants from this water butt. And over time, our tiny little garden area produced flowers and fruit, and we had apples in time for Rosh Hashanah. We used our own produce to build our sukkah. This isn't only from that tiny little garden area, but it emerged, and this is something you might discover in your communities, that members are doing loads of things, and it's just a case of pulling it all together. So loads of members were doing their own gardening, and they brought in their produce. Some of them have donated bulbs that we've put into our synagogue garden, so that we're actually spending next to nothing, probably nothing actually, on developing the garden area. And we used our own resources to make our own lulav and etrog for Sukkot. So this is a project that I don't think anyone else has mentioned. I, by a circular tour, made contact with the Northumberland Wildlife Trust, and so they operate around our whole region. They have loads of activities, they have events and things for kids. I contacted them about a tree planting event they had publicised, which was on a Saturday. And I got in touch and said, well, I'm sure we have members that would like to do tree planting. Can you run any on a Sunday? And they got back to me and said, oh, we're so sorry that we're excluding part of the community. We'll run some events on a Sunday. By this stage, it was quite late in the year, so we didn't actually do any, but on next year's calendar there will be tree planting events that we can encourage members to join. However, they put me in touch with a community liaison person who said, well, why don't you build an insect hotel? So I don't know if anyone has ever heard of an insect hotel, but you can see here it's under construction. She brought along lots of toilet rolls and empty plastic tubes, and we gathered from the members, we gathered some pallets and some bricks. She brought along some wildflower seeds, and we had a great morning constructing this thing. Here it is in flower. So there are some pictures as well of people building it. And so the idea is that the insects crawl in and out of all the rubble that you've put inside, and then you scatter your wildflower seeds on top to encourage wildlife there. And it's all upcycled materials. All those bits of timber were lying around under the porter cabin, and Kathy brought along some nails and hammers and things. Here's the team that contributed, and you can see there's all ages. And there was a member there, not in this photograph, I think, who was very heavily pregnant, and she came and sat on a chair and just enjoyed watching it. And it was the same day as Hader, so the Hader teacher was leading the classes in the garden while the building was going on. So it was a lovely community event. I think that's my last slide. The other thing I wanted to talk about was the kind of actions individual members are taking, because there's the actions that, and lots of people have talked about the actions that the synagogue is taking to help meet the demands of the audit. And it does have a knock-on effect on the members. And we hear about things that individuals are doing. People are looking into their transport arrangements. People are looking at where they can get refillable refills of washing up liquid and laundry liquid, those kind of things. People have taken on the idea of recycled toilet paper because we introduced it at the synagogue. And a thing, this is what some of the members have decided to do. If you just scroll down so we can see the kind of projects. This is an organisation called EcoSynagogue. And they have a whole range of projects. Some of them are with business, some are with charities, some are with individuals. Could you scroll down again? These are kinds of individual projects that you can sign up to. And if you just scroll across, Fiona, to get to planting trees in the UK, because that's what our members are doing. You can swipe left or right, whichever way it is. Oh yeah, keep going left. Little bit more, that's it. So plant trees in the UK. So you can decide how much you want to donate a month, and that our members have decided they want to support planting trees in the UK. And it was like quite a small amount per month, but they told me recently they've been doing it for about a year now, and they've planted they have paid for the planting of about 245 trees or something. And we're looking at how we can do that as a community. So if we can make a community donation just to reforest, the UK or, the desert or wherever. Another thing that we were fortunate to participate in was something called net zero training that was offered to representatives of companies in the Northeast. And they helped us with calculating the carbon footprint, as did Donna, I think. Thank you very much for that, Donna. So they've come up with lots of ideas like the EcoSynagogue tree planting idea that just kind of help us all on the journey, really. And so there's ideas that individual members can do, and ideas, smaller things that we can do across our synagogue community. Plans for the future are, we have already got silver award, and we do need to look at how to work towards gold. I think we're doing quite a lot of it already. It's a problem of we're a small community and a very small environmental action group, and it's quite hard to get people together, but it's very heartening to know that lots of members are doing lots of things that help us on the journey. I think that's all from me.
That is absolutely brilliant, really encouraging and exciting. Thank you so much,
Thank
Deb.
you.
The fifth presenter, very happy to present Angela Whitman from Edgware and Hendon Reformed Synagogue. Angela is a real community champion working in a team within her shul to inspire others. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So it's fascinating to see how we've all come at this in a different way. But I'm now going to share with you what we've been doing in our community. The title of the presentation is Becoming an Eco Champion, and the emphasis is on becoming because it's still very much a work in progress. It began quite a while ago when our senior rabbi, Mark Goldsmith, hosted a meeting entitled Climate Change is a Jewish Issue. And it is, of course, a global issue, but it's one that very much resonates with us as Jews. And it's from this meeting that we decided to join EcoSynagogue. EHRS is very fortunate. We have a very strong rabbinic team. All three of them are passionate about environmental issues, and two of them, Rabbi Mark and Rabbi Tanya, are actually on the Eco-Judaism team. We also have a very supportive council. So they approved our policy document and our commitment to join EcoSynagogue, which we did in 2020. That said, it hasn't always been plain sailing. The good work started by the team assembled by Rabbi Mark lost its impetus with the arrival of COVID. And when we finally got back, it's probably 2 years we lost from that. When we finally got back to in-person meetings, we discovered that our eco team had shrunk. Not from any sinister reasons, but simply because people had moved on to other things. So how to get back on track? Looking back, I picked out 2 things I think have helped us to progress and achieve a bronze award in 2022, and this year a silver. So the first was the introduction of eco tips into our week ahead email, which is sent out weekly. These covered a wide range of topics. For example, we looked at why single-use plastic is so bad for the planet and the simple swaps that can be done to make the difference. Members were urged to raid their kitchen cupboards to look for everyday ingredients like lemons and bicarbonate of soda and white vinegar, all of which can be used to make a range of eco-friendly cleaners and insecticides and pest controllers. And the cat isn't a pest, he's welcome. Okay, we also delved into the 3 R's, reduce, reuse, recycle. We covered the plants to plant to attract bees, why it's a really bad idea to concrete over your front garden, the eco way to exercise, like walking, cycling, plogging when you pick up litter as you jog, how to avoid food waste and why, and how to conserve water. Ethical brands and the labels to look out for, like B Corp and Fair Trade, and swapping clothes or buying from charity shops. And some of the really hard-hitting things like the link between global warming and modern slavery. So this went on for well over a year, and I must have at least 60 to 70 separate tips waiting for me to collate into a booklet. I'm not promising, but I will try and do that. But it had the desired effect. It got people talking. And I know this because after the Shabbat service, I'd go into Kiddush and people would come up to me and say, oh, I like this week's eco tip, or I just thought about doing this one, or you would have been so proud of me. And that was from Lawrence, who had decided to visit his grandparents' and aunts' graves over in East London. He was determined not to use his car, and apparently it took him 13 changes of public transport to achieve his aim. But yes, I was very proud of him. Or from Rabbi Tanya, who after a tip about fatberg said, bless you, I have been trying to tell my son this for years and he doesn't believe me, but now you put it out as an eco tip. He does. Maybe as a result, or maybe not, our shul has expanded its activities to include a rambling group, a cycling group, and a foraging group. The second initiative that had a major impact on our journey to silver coincided with the arrival of Rabbi Tanya Saknovich, the third member of our rabbinic team. Mark decided that given her credentials, she would be the ideal person to take over from him and take on the Eco project, and she is, bringing ideas with her from her time at Nottingham. So the next phase concentrated on building a calendar of events based around the Jewish calendar. And we decided to aim this mainly at the younger members of the shul and their families to widen the scope of the message we were trying to get out there. Right, okay, this is the first one. This is Hanukkah, and we encouraged the children to make their own Hanukkahot from recycled goods. This was so successful, we're going to be doing it again this coming Hanukkah. For Purim, and I don't have any photos for this, unfortunately. For Purim, we tackled plastics and recycling. So I brought along a bag full of plastic things for the children to look at, like plastic toothbrush, bamboo toothbrush, liquid dispensers, bar of soap. It's amazing how switched on those children are. They really are into eco things already without us telling them. They could probably teach me a few things. And another of our members, Julie, devised a game for them when they had to decide which items could be recycled and where. And like you were showing with your tetracycle thing, she actually knows places where you can recycle blister packaging or flimsy plastic. So we were able to say to the children, it's not just the obvious places where you can recycle. If you look a bit further, you can find other places. Most things you can now find somewhere to put them rather than in landfill. At Pesach, Rabbi Debbie did one of her famous cook-alongs on the theme of zero waste Seder. Now for Shavuot, and we do have a photo, we held a grow your own produce session led by another of our team, Julia. She has her own allotment and she bought some seedlings for the children to identify and pot up for themselves. And at the end of the table, I showed them how to make some wildflower seed bombs, which was lovely and messy, and they enjoyed it. And I should think the parents are still cursing me to this day. For Rosh Hashanah, we've got two photographs. We held a reverse tashlik event. This is the first one, where instead of casting away our sins by throwing bread on the water, we pulled litter out of it. This is the one at Welsh Harp Reservoir. And this year we went to Silver Stream at Burnt Oak. That's this one here. Okay. And finally, we decorated our sukkah eco style. So there's another photograph. We put up the graphic to remind people to eat seasonally and showed them all the produce that's available at this time of year. The next photograph. I brought in some hanging baskets. This one has got garden mint and apple mint in it. I also had some baskets with strawberries and with parsley, rosemary and thyme, but unfortunately no sage. Just to demonstrate that you don't need a garden to grow your own produce. You can use hanging baskets. You can put pots on the patio. You can use window boxes. You just need a bit of imagination. Next photo. So we hung our fruit up in a pair of old tights. And we also used some string bags produced by a company appalled at the damage done to turtles who mistake plastic bags floating in our oceans for their favorite food, jellyfish. So again, these events have had the same thing. They raise awareness, they start conversations, they lead to other initiatives. Our team has expanded by a further 4 members. So we're now truly representative of all the age groups. We start with teenage and we arrive at my age, and I won't tell you what that is. And we hopefully, that's the way we're going to continue to build so that we can work our way towards gold and a net zero future. Okay.
Thank you so much, Angela. That was so inspiring. When I was first in touch with Angela a couple of months ago, she was saying, oh, I'm really nervous with Zoom. That was fantastic. Such a beautiful presentation. Really lovely. Thank you so much for doing that. And I'd now like to hand over to Rabbi Jeff, who I'll say again, Eco-Judaism trustee and leadership team, the Spanish and Portuguese Sephardi community, who's going to be, I'm so grateful, holding us together at this difficult time. We've had a little bit of time to think about other things. And now we'll come back to you to think about our situation in the world. Thank you, Rabbi Joe.
You're very welcome, Fiona. Thank you for the privilege of being with of such a creative and inspiring group of people, and to hear so many wonderful stories of how the eco-Judaism impetus is taking root and flourishing in synagogues all throughout the country. I'm cognizant of the fact that we are inspired, and I don't want to sort of leave on a sad note, but I would think that we need to recognize the times that we're in, and perhaps I can share with you a few thoughts. One set of thoughts about the idea of being, part of humanity, the other specific to this week's parashah and the journey of Abraham. And then, with permission, we'll close with a prayer for the state of Israel and for all of its soldiers and inhabitants. So we recently read in the Torah a few weeks ago that the first human being was formed of dust gathered from the four corners of the earth, into which the Almighty gently breathed into its nostrils the breath of life to become a living soul. The verse that I'm quoting in Hebrew reads, Vayipach be'apav nishmat chayim, vayhi ha'adam lenefesh chayav. The words for living soul are nishmat chayim. And in modern Hebrew, a breath is a nishima. And I'll come back to that towards the end of this brief homily. It is up to us what we do with this precious gift of life that the Almighty has blessed us with. Many of us, certainly many of my congregants over the last 3 weeks, have felt anxious for Israel's safety and its long-term security. It seems like a truly existential crisis. Should all of our enemies combine their forces, there's a possibility, remote, we all pray, that Israel could actually be destroyed. This is being referred to as our 9/11 watershed moment. And so, in whatever way each of us perceives this period, we should understand that Israel-Gaza is beyond our control. There are world and regional powers jockeying for hegemony in a region that has had a difficult history for millennia. And some of those forces are, if we want to use the word, malignant and evil. Unconsciously, we may sense that events of this scale are potentially cataclysmic in nature. What was the previous normal relationship in that part of southern Israel has been shattered, and a new level of relationship will have to emerge going forward. But one thing I feel reasonably confident in, though I can't be 100% certain, is that we have little choice but to entrust our future to the Almighty, which is why currently I've advised all of my congregants that our prayers are of immense value. Watching all that is occurring in Israel has the additional impact of making us feel less safe here in the United Kingdom, and even perhaps feeling that we are at risk of being harmed. It hasn't helped that we've seen rallies that are pro-Palestinian, even celebrating the massacre that occurred. It is not uncommon for friends of mine to describe themselves as at periods trembling throughout the day in fear and worry. While to many of us it seems the world has gone mad, blaming the victim who was brutally attacked by Hamas less than 3 weeks ago, it's equally important for our own mental well-being to understand that obsessively watching the news and even going to rallies, while they may provide some solace, they also have the potential to overwhelm us emotionally and even move us to rage, hatred, and other negative emotions. And we should also be careful not to fall into the trap of competing narratives and numbers. My victimhood is greater than yours because of how many innocent people were killed. This is a tragedy for all who are caught up in it, including us in the UK. Therefore, it is important to reach out to friends, Jewish and non-Jewish, not to ask them to stand on our side, but to see how they are doing. Because one of the things I've discovered is that even non-Jews feel immensely distressed by what's happening in the Middle East. This is not a battle about self-righteousness. It's a time for humility, for soul-searching, and for finding our shared humanity, for showing there are positive ways to contribute to peace. Standing together offers us an encouraging model for unity. The American writer F. Scott Fitzgerald said that a test of higher level intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in our mind at the same time and still be capable of functioning. It is okay to love Israel and yet feel overwhelmed. It is okay to want peace and to also expect justice. It is okay to be committed to Israel's survival, but also to see its shortcomings. It is okay to condemn Hamas and not to hate all Palestinians. It is okay to hold conflicting opinions, but it is important to separate them in our mind rather than allow them to overwhelm us and make us feel confused. So my prayers are that we can each find a piece of sanity to hold on to, and that for each of us it will be different. In this week's parasha, we met Avraham and Sarah. Long-term, their story worked out for the best. But to be first to herald monotheism in a pagan world was an enormous risk without guarantee of certainty or success. Even after following God's command to move to Canaan, the reader senses in Abram's constant building of altars a continuous unfulfilled need. When God appeared in Shechem, wouldn't it have been enough to build the altar and settle there? Instead, Abram uprooted toward the mountains and built another altar and called to God, and did so a third time in the Negev. Is it possible Abram sought out God on each separate occasion because the divine presence wasn't yet constant in his life? In these early episodes, God's communication with Abram seemed intermittent at best. One way for me to view this is that maintaining reception and connectivity with God was perhaps like today's mobile technology. The challenge was Abraham needed to stay within a transmission range. Wandering here and there through the Negev suggests initially his network was tenuous. Abram regularly searched new places where the divine was present and then formalized them with an altar and offerings. The equivalent, you'll forgive me, of installing new 5G antennas. This would continue into the generations of Isaac, Jacob, Joseph, and his brothers until Moses, in his relationship with the Almighty, brought Bnei Israel to Sinai to directly hear the word of God. And in so doing, he helped form a God-conscious nation that would become a living testimony and conduit to the divine presence in our world, a presence that I think is largely comprised of the idea of love. In 2023, when the unexpected and unthinkable happens so frequently, and divine reception is so easily interrupted, how much more must we be like Abraham and Sarah, seeking out God if we want to keep our network and our awareness intact? The Torah promises that all will work out well, but for now, it feels like our certainty and success are far from guaranteed. And so coming back to the word nishama, on an ongoing basis, we encounter life physically first and foremost through our breath. The Eastern meditative traditions remind us to focus on our breathing to become centered, and by doing so, we quiet our bodies and connect with our inner selves. In Judaism, each day, we have the opportunity to fill our lungs with God's praises in prayer. Kol hanishama tehalel Yah, hallelujah. There are many unanticipated calamities in life: pandemics, cost of living crises, war, climate change. They challenge our sense of equilibrium, setting off a fear that we've lost control. But in fact, we control very little other than perhaps our own breath. From the moment of birth until we expire, what all human beings have in common is our breathing. To truly appreciate this breath of life, we, like Abraham and Sarah, are benefited by daily connecting it to the divine source from which it comes. This is a prayer, as I mentioned, it comes from the Spanish and Portuguese tradition. Mishaberach avotenu Avram Yitzchak Yaakov Moshe Aaron v'Davidu Shlomo hu yivarech et medinat Yisrael et zareha et yoatzeha v'et yosheveha melech machem lachim berachamav yitaknem v'etzah tova milifanav v'yanuach al shochne admat hakodesh ruach dad v'yirat Adonai Sham chesed v'yamet yipagshu l'chol bnei adam ki mala haaretz de'ah et Adonai v'inkaim banu mikra shekatuv ki mitzion tetzei Torah u'dvar Adonai Yerushalayim v'chen yiratzon v'nomar Amen. May who blessed our ancestors, bless the state of Israel, its leaders, its counselors, and all its inhabitants. May the Supreme King of Kings direct them with good counsel, and may he pour upon them, the dwellers of the Holy Land, the spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. May mercy and truth meet together there for the good of all mankind, so that the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and may God's promise be fulfilled, that out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. May this be the divine will, and let us say, Amen.
Amen.
And of course, we keep in mind our determination in our prayers for the hostages who are being held against their will, and for those who were wounded in the attacks on the 7th of October.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Jeff, and thank you to everybody.